There are three main pillars on which we build our games: controls, camera and character actions. And these will define how the game will look, feel and play, and are the first areas to prototype in Hellblade. Choosing a camera view was one of the first decisions to be made on Hellblade. We're making a third-person action game, but even so, the type of camera can have a massive impact on the gameplay and the controls.
In Heavenly Sword we had cameras on rails which were painstakingly mapped into the levels by designers, and it is a system that won't really work for the more open world that we are building. In DMC we used a free-roaming camera, but it was still intelligent enough to behave well in most instances without player input. It took the coder the best part of 2 years to implement this system, and it's a luxury we simply cannot afford for Hellblade.
Our world in Hellblade is more open than in previous games, and our team is small. So we can't afford to create a camera system that is heavily reliant on coders and designers. We need a camera that is cinematic, easy to implement, and gives the player complete control.
We settled on a third-person over-the-shoulder camera, and it's not something we've tried on other games, but it's straightforward to implement from a code point of view. It's easy to set up from the design point of view, and being so close to the character minimizes collision issues, which is always a big problem.
The control system is defined by the camera system, and this viewpoint has a lot more in common with a third-person shooter, where you have the left stick for moving forward, backwards and strafing, and right stick for turning. There actually are very few melee games that use this kind of control system and camera view, but so far it seems to work well in Hellblade.
For combat, the view would need to frame both Senua and the enemy very clearly. And to do this, we would have a lock-on button, which when pressed, would both pull out so that we can see Senua clearly, and zoom in so that we can see the enemy nice and big on screen. And then once locked on, you'd be able to strafe around the enemy very easily. With this working, the next step was to try out different numbers of enemies and different sizes of enemies to see if the view could cope, to see how the controls would feel, and to explore how lock-on targeting would work in these instances.
You may have noticed that our animations at this stage look very basic. In the prototyping phase, we create bare-bones placeholder animations that can be churned out and changed quickly as prototyping progresses. This allows us to iterate on gameplay to make it feel good before we focusing on making it look good.
To find the right look for the combat animations, we always do a thing called style tests on all of our games, so it's no different for Hellblade. And in this style test, I really wanted to capture the essence of Senua, that she should feel grounded, that there should be an anger that drives her attacks, that there's a wildness about her, but also a sense of discipline that she's achieved through years of training.
Happy with the results, the next step is to cut this up into usable animations, to get them into the game to make sure we're hitting all of the right notes in terms of control and responsiveness, whilst at the same time maintaining the visual style. So while we're using Unreal Engine 4 out of the box for the most part, combat is one area where the investment in iteration is required. Mel, one of our coders, is implementing our combat engine to do just that.
The battle engine will allow us to visually create a combat system. It allows us to link together animations, reactions, pad inputs, data, and all other things like visual and sound effects.
The Hellblade combat system is likely to involve hundreds of animations, sound effects, visual effects, and driving these are thousands of parameters that a designer will have to tweak over and over the course of the project. So the ability to iterate rapidly and often is what will determine the quality, the precision and the responsiveness of Hellblade's combat.
The system runs in real time, so the combat system can be developed live while the game is running. It's a system that will eventually allow designers and animators to create and expand the combat system without any code involvement.
At its core, Hellblade will have a hardcore battle system, one that is entirely skill-based and one that the big AAA studios tend to shy away from in the pursuit of mass appeal. Just like one-on-one fighting games, the controls should be dead simple, lightning fast, but there should be endless nuance in the way you play the game.
On top of all of that, there's still room left for something that we call special sauce, something that sets the combat gameplay apart from anything else that exists. This is based on the themes that underpin the story and Senua's character, and we've already started to previs the ideas for this, which we'll be sharing in future episodes.